Thank you so much for joining me here for this podcast voyage. This is the Meditative Photographer Podcast, and I am, of course, your host, Guru Jerry. I'd like to guide you through a meditation today, a photography meditation. So, if you wouldn't mind, please close your eyes. Try to focus on your breath. As thoughts about photography enter your mind, try not to judge them. Simply allow them to be. Allow them to float off into the distance. Maybe you're worried that your gear is a bit outdated. Maybe you think that your personal style doesn't stand out enough. Don't hold on to any of these preoccupations and realize that they don't serve you. They don't serve your creative ability as a photographer. Simply be, simply exist. Now, take this sense of calm and bring this into the rest of your photography throughout life. And as this meditation comes to a close, I would like to, of course, welcome you all to the show that this really is, which is the Photography Friends podcast. Actually, that was pretty nice. Maybe I should become like a meditation guru guy, but I don't know. I don't want to put you guys all asleep on the podcast today. Anyways, I don't know if I said it or not, but I'm your photographer, Jared Poirier, and we've got a great episode in store for all of you today. It's actually the final installment of our series on the various niches in photography. This is the fifth episode in the series. So far, we've looked into real estate photography, boudoir photography, events photography, and food photography. And today we're going to be getting into what, might have a pretty good chance of being the greatest niche in all of photography, guys. Some people consider this the holy grail of photography, which is, of course, wedding photography. I interviewed a phenomenal photographer and a good friend of mine. He's actually been on the podcast before, Michael Tenaglia, and he does a lot of different photography. He actually does a lot of like event photography and stuff like that, but he's also done quite a few weddings. He was kind enough to share some of his experience, some of his expertise with wedding photography, and we're gonna get into all of that stuff. But first, we need to thank our beautiful, gracious, wonderful sponsor, which is, of course, CloudSpot. It's the easiest way for photographers to deliver and sell their photos online, you guys. Photographers can experience beautiful galleries. Your clients can experience easy downloads. You can save time. You can impress your clients. All you got to do is check out that link down there in the old description, and you'll be able to get 50% off CloudSpot. So, wedding photography. It's a area of photography that is treasured by many. It's an area where I think you can make a lot of money. There's a lot of work, every single summer, people just keep getting married, you guys. You can't stop people from getting married. Even myself, I got married last year, so even I'm not blameless here. But is wedding photography right for you? Well, we're here to get to the bottom of that, and that's why I asked Michael all of these great questions about the very nature of wedding photography to help you guys decide, if this is something that you want to get into. I used to do a lot of songs on the podcast. Haven't done a song in a while. Kind of miss doing the songs. So for each one of these sections, I'll just kind of do a quick song. I don't know. What are the best things about wedding photography? Okay, this is a segment where, not surprisingly, we're going to talk about the best things about wedding photography. Now, I've never done any wedding photography myself. I would love to get into it. I'm moving to Niagara on the Lake soon, so I'll probably have to get into doing some wedding photography. I don't think that there's going to be any choice at this point. But according to Michael, some of the best things about wedding photography include working weekends rather than during the week. Some people like to have the weekends off, like to have the weekends to themselves. Some people enjoy the option of working on the weekends and being able to chill during the week when everybody else is at work. So, it kind of depends on the type of person that you are. Some people hate working weekends and just cannot do it. The freedom to choose your clients, pick people that you get along with. This is a really nice thing about wedding photography. I think this kind of extends to other forms of photography, though. You can kind of always pick your clients, I guess, unless you are working for an agency or something like that. But anyways, Michael has highlighted that here. You get paid to party. Which is nice, You're often in a nice atmosphere, doing fun stuff. People tend to be in a good mood when they're at weddings. People are, consuming some alcohol sometimes at weddings and stuff like that. So, it's a nice environment to work in. And if you're someone who's very extroverted, right? Like if you like being around people and you get a lot of energy from being around people, then that can be great for you. All right, it's time for another song here. This will have to be like a more scarier song because we're going to talk about the worst things about wedding photography. So the worst things about wedding photography. Okay, so these are the worst things about wedding photography. Editing. Number one, Michael says that the editing is the worst thing about wedding photography. I could understand that. You take a crap load of photos and you have to go through and edit all those photos. Even just culling them would take a lot of time. You probably end up overshooting a lot at weddings, I would guess, just to make sure that you do get coverage of everything. So yeah, I could see that being a frustrated part. And me personally, I definitely prefer the shooting side of things to the editing side of things. There's lots of people who are very gifted editors, and I don't know, I guess they don't have attention deficit disorder like I do, because they're able to handle sitting down and doing all of that editing. Other than that, Michael points to all of the client meetings and emails that go along with wedding photography. I could definitely see that being kind of a problem. And the fact that these days everyone has cell phones, and especially, obviously leading up to it, but especially on the day, I can imagine people bothering you quite a bit with the cell phone thing, and trying to make sure that you're doing the job that you're already trying to do. So yeah, I could definitely understand that being a frustration. There was another really interesting thing that Michael brought up in my conversation with him. Basically, the fact that no one ever really finishes their packages with wedding photography, right? In a sense, people get their fix when they just get those initial images, and they can post those on Instagram, get those likes, those comments. And that's kind of these days what a lot of people want. So if you're kind of a completionist and someone who can't really handle the fact that like a project just kind of fizzles out and you don't complete every little last part of it, this might be really frustrating to you. I guess it would be fun as long as you get paid, right? Like, I guess it's okay. And yeah, another thing, Michael didn't really mention this, but maybe he's just such a cool customer. But I would think that there is quite a bit of pressure when you're doing wedding photography, right? Pressure to make sure that you're getting every single shot, that you're not missing any moments. For this reason, some people rock like 2 cameras or even bring like a second shooter. I could definitely see wanting to have like a second shooter as a wedding photographer, just to make sure that you're not missing any moments and stuff like that. All right, third section here. That is the section on gear, which is already almost a song. All right, here we go with another acoustic jam here on the topic of photography. Feeling a D chord on this one. Gear. So the gear that you need for wedding photography. Michael went with a good bag to start. Pretty surprising, That's not really the first most glamorous, exciting piece of gear that I would think of right away. But for Mr. Tenaglia here, he said that a good bag is the key. So for what that's worth, good straps. Harness for 2 cameras. Not only will that make you look like a badass, kind of getting like those cowboy gunslinger vibes going, but you'll also have both of those cameras easily accessible. Mentioned earlier, it's really helpful to have 2 cameras when you're shooting weddings, right? Maybe you want to have like a 50 millimeter lens on one and like a zoom lens on the other, just to make sure that you have all of those options. When it comes to the actual cameras themselves, Michael has 2 Sony A7 IIIs, very similar to my camera, which is the A7 IV. He mentions here, kind of those classic portrait prime lenses, 85 millimeter, 50 millimeter. He also shouts out the 24 to 70 and the 70 to 200 for when you need a little bit of zoomage, and having, a nice aperture on those would be good as well, I imagine, right? Being able to get a bit of bokeh and stuff could be nice for a nice effect for wedding photographers. Camera flash is another thing that Michael brings up. I think that's very true. Depending on the weather, right? Like in some situations, you might not have to use that flash if it's like nice weather, you're outdoors or whatever. But definitely for those indoor shots, those shots of people dancing and stuff like that, you'll probably want to have that flash, even one that you can take off of your camera, have like a remote flash scenario going on. I could see that being very useful. The small things that you don't think about, right? Those things that aren't glamorous, like the batteries, the memory cards, all of that stuff, having backup memory cards, backup batteries, having everything charged up or formatted, ready to go, whatever it is, just to make sure that you're not wasting any time and that you're not missing any moments. There's also the idea of getting like a battery grip. This is another thing that can be really good if you're shooting for long hours and you don't want to be switching out batteries. A battery grip allows you to shoot for a lot longer, makes your camera a little bit bigger and a little bit heavier, but if that trade-off is worth it, then it is. Okay, we can get into some of the perks here of wedding photography. with another song. This one's about perks, so we're gonna go kind of happy on this one. Maybe like this kind of bar chord action. That should be pretty good. Perks, 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 perks. Perks, 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 perks. It's time for perks. All right, that's the song about perks. And these are some perks of wedding photography. Being part of the family, right? The unique personal bond that you make with people by shooting their weddings, right? If you shoot something that's like really, really personal. I even did a little bit of like video stuff, nothing too extensive. I was just helping a buddy out. But at my friend Luke's wedding, I did a little wedding video stuff, like recorded some stuff of his dad and just of the ceremony a little bit and stuff like that. And yeah, it was touching, and it was nice to be able to do that, right? And to be part of preserving something very personal. Something very special about that. A lot of the time you end up, if you do a good job, you end up being friends with the people, the bride and groom. You basically have an in with the family, right? And if you are shooting great wedding photos, you're going to get referrals, you're going to get more work. There's also the idea of destination weddings. So maybe you get to travel to somewhere really cool and shoot the photos there. And I can imagine that being pretty fun experience. And sometimes people tip you, apparently, which would be pretty sweet. So yeah, there's some pretty good perks in there, guys. Like, I said at the beginning of this episode that wedding photography has a decent chance of winning this, being declared the greatest niche in all of photography. But we have one more category before we find out. Making that money doing photography. Making that photography money. Shooting the weddings. Yeah. That was the worst one yet. This is going to be a simple section, though. It's just how many dollar signs. Just want to make sure I don't mess up my guitar. How many dollar signs out of 5 are we talking? And this might not come as a surprise for you guys, but Michael said, and I agree from what I know about wedding photography, it's a 5 out of 5. When people are getting married, especially if it's like, big, important, fancy wedding, people are expecting to spend some money. And, it's not rare for people to make thousands of dollars, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, possibly thousands of dollars, shooting weddings. And yeah, it's one of the most lucrative forms of photography out there. And I guess that brings us into our last section here. So I don't know do you guys want a song for that? It's the best niche section. So, is wedding photography the greatest niche in all of photography? Well, this might be kind of climactic, but the truth is that there probably is no greatest niche in all of photography, right? The truth is that there's only really a best niche for you, right? Everyone's different. Everyone's approach to photography is different. Everyone's interests are different. So it's going to be very difficult to say, oh, there's one ultimate niche, right? But in terms of deciding what niche you want to get into in photography, I think it's really important to ask yourself questions like, how extroverted are you? How well can you handle stress, right? Who do you enjoy working with? And I want to say, like, most importantly, what are you into, right? If you're not truly interested in the thing that you're doing, the thing that you're shooting photos for, then it's going to be really hard to put yourself out there every single day and put in the work that it's going to take to be successful, right? It's got to be something that you're passionate about. So in going through this series, there's some things that I've realized about myself, right? And realized about choosing a niche in photography. The reality is that you're probably going to need like 2 target demographics with your photography, right? You're going to need the thing that you're doing for, artistic gratification, the thing that you're doing for fun, just to improve your own skills, or just because you truly enjoy it, right? And for me, that's kind of like concert photography and stuff like that. Taking photos of my dog. For the other thing that you're going to need to target, right? It's the thing that's going to like make you the majority of your money. You know, I do a lot of like explainer videos and stuff like that, bigger video shoots. I plan on getting into some like commercial work and things like that. Yeah, they're like fun to do. They're enjoyable. I'm definitely improving my skills, definitely utilizing the things that I know about photography and video. But they're what I do for money, right? They're a good chunk of money, and they keep the business going. So yeah, think about that. Think about having those 2 things, having that thing that's generating a lot of income, but also that thing that reminds you why you got into this in the first place, right? That thing that reminds you what you love about photography. And there's this idea in filmmaking, I believe that this was kind of coined by Martin Scorsese, pretty famous director. Maybe you've heard of him. He came up with this idea of, directors working in Hollywood, that you create one for them and one for you, right? I think that's a really good way of summing up what I'm trying to talk about here, that if you really want to make it in like a creative business, you got to have both things, right? You got to have the thing that you're doing for artistic gratification, and then the thing that you're doing to make a bunch of money. So that's it for this show, guys. That's it for this series. It's not it for this podcast, obviously. Love doing this podcast for you guys. But I am moving. I have been going through quite a lot of changes. I have been very, very busy. I've been doing a lot of video editing and thinking of, kind of retooling things, maybe approaching podcasting, maybe approaching content in a different way. I want to free myself up in certain ways. I want to be able to experiment, with content creation and art and all of that stuff. So I'm gonna be screwing up the schedule of this podcast a little bit for the next few months. I wouldn't expect weekly episodes. I think it'll be kind of a spontaneous release schedule. Might be doing some vlogs and some other stuff like that. So make sure that you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, Jared Poirier on YouTube. Make sure that you are following the podcast on Instagram, photo_friends_pod. Any content that we're doing that's, aside from the podcast itself, the audio podcast, I'll be putting up out there. And I just want to thank you guys so much for all of your support on the podcast. And look forward to bringing you lots of great content over the coming months. And check out our sponsor, CloudSpot. There's a link down in the description. And what else can I say? You guys are the best friggin' photographers. And truly, I appreciate you listening. Appreciate you supporting the podcast. I love you guys. I'll see you soon.